Okay, let's dive in. What if a really major player in the crypto world started showing cracks?
Yeah, it sounds pretty dramatic, doesn't it?
It really does. Well, today we're digging into a prediction that's definitely raising eyebrows. The idea that Ethereum might actually be facing, well, a serious decline down the road.
And what makes this especially interesting is who is saying it. We're talking about Charles Hoskinson.
Right, one of the original Ethereum co-founders.
Exactly. And, the founder of Cardano. So he's got skin in the game on both sides, in a way. He's seen these ecosystems develop from the inside.
Definitely gives him a unique perspective. And this isn't just rumor, right? This is based on actual reporting.
Correct. It stems from a Bitcoin News article published April 25th, 2025. It mentions blockchain attorney John E. Deaton sharing some pretty strong comments from Hoskinson.
Comments about Ethereum maybe not surviving past, what, 10 or 15 years?
That's the time frame mentioned, yeah.
Yeah.
So our goal today is really to unpack that. What's behind this claim? What are his reasons? And maybe what could it mean for, well, everything in crypto?
Okay, so let's start with Hoskinson himself. His background is key here.
Absolutely. You have to consider he wasn't just involved with Ethereum. He helped build it initially. He understands its roots, its core design.
And then he went off and built Cardano, a direct competitor in many ways.
Right. So he has this comparative viewpoint. He knows the decisions made for Ethereum early on, and he made different ones for Cardano. That comparison informs his critique.
So what's the core issue, according to him? Why this potentially bleak outlook for Ethereum?
He basically argues that Ethereum was built with some fundamental design flaws right from the beginning. And these flaws, coupled with growing competition, could be its undoing.
Not just market stuff, but deep architectural problems.
That's the idea. He apparently points to 3 critical flaws, things baked into the system from day one.
Okay, what are they?
The article cites them as the wrong accounting model, the wrong virtual machine, and the wrong consensus model.
Wow. That's pretty fundamental. He called them self-inflicted wounds, didn't he?
He did, which suggests he thinks these problems were maybe avoidable, or at least that the risks were known.
Let's break that down a bit. The accounting model. What does that actually mean in blockchain terms? Is it like keeping the ledger?
Sort of. Think of it as the basic way the blockchain tracks account balances and smart contract states. Hoskinson seems to feel Ethereum's model. The account-based model is less flexible or efficient for certain things compared to, say, the UTXO model that Bitcoin uses and Cardano adapted.
Okay, so maybe harder to update or add features later on, like building on a less adaptable foundation.
That's a good way to put it. If the foundation isn't quite right for future plans, renovations become a massive job.
And what about Ethereum's efforts to fix things or upgrade, like the merge to proof of stake? Does he think those aren't enough?
It seems his argument is that these fixes, while maybe necessary, have introduced new complexities. Specifically, he points to challenges with governance.
Governance, how decisions get made on the network.
Exactly. He suggests that because Ethereum is so big and has layered these fixes, setting up a really effective, smooth on-chain governance system where the protocol itself manages upgrades and changes is incredibly hard.
How hard? Did he give a timeline?
He apparently estimated it could take Ethereum another 5 to 7 years just to build a properly functional governance system.
5 to 7 years. In crypto, that's like an eternity.
It really is. And then he contrasts that, naturally, with Cardano.
Right, which he says already has on-chain governance.
Yes, and he projects it will be fully mature within 3 to 5 years. So he's setting up a clear contrast in readiness and efficiency, at least in his view.
So governance is one big hurdle he sees. What else? You mentioned layer 2 solutions earlier.
Yeah, this is another really interesting point he reportedly made. Things like Optimism, Arbitrum, Polygon. The solutions meant to help Ethereum scale.
He's not a fan.
His concern, according to the report, is that these layer 2s will increasingly drain value from the base layer.
Drain value? How? Because the activity moves off the main chain.
Precisely. If all the transactions, the DeFi, the NFTs, are happening more cheaply and quickly on layer 2, what's the economic incentive driving value back to Ethereum itself? To ETH, the asset? That's the question he seems to be raising.
It's like the activity moves to the suburbs and the city center becomes less relevant.
That's a fair analogy. And he apparently used one too, talking about potential infighting between these different L2s and the core chain.
And mentioned Vitalik Buterin finding it hard to keep it all together.
Yeah, the idea that Vitalik can't just steer this ship through sheer force of will indefinitely in such a potentially fragmenting ecosystem.
Which I guess loops back to the governance problem, too. If everyone's doing their own thing on different L2s.
It'd make consensus on core changes even harder, yeah. More stakeholders, potentially diverging interests.
Okay, so internal design flaws, governance struggles, L2s potentially pulling value away. What about external threats? Competition.
Oh, absolutely. That's a huge part of his argument. He doesn't think Ethereum exists in a vacuum.
He brought up some historical examples.
Yes, comparing Ethereum to platforms like MySpace or BlackBerry. Giants in their day.
That got overtaken by newer, maybe better technology. Ouch.
Exactly. He sees a similar risk for Ethereum, that faster, perhaps better designed competitors could eat into its dominance.
Did he name names?
The article mentions Solana specifically and also refers to something called Swede.
Swede. Interesting. And he thinks these are genuinely threatening Ethereum's position.
His reported words were that they are eating Ethereum alive. So yeah, pretty strong language indicating he sees the competitive pressure as very real and very intense.
Wow. Okay, but it's not all negative, is it? I thought the article mentioned he still acknowledged Ethereum's strengths.
That's true, and it's an important nuance. He reportedly called Ethereum an excellent project, hindered by its own success.
Hindered by success. How does that work?
Well, think about it. When you're massive, with a huge existing user base and value locked up, making fundamental changes is really difficult and risky. There's inertia. It's harder to pivot or adopt radically new approaches, even if they might be technically better.
The innovator's dilemma, basically. The big, successful incumbent finds it hard to adapt when disruptive newcomers arrive.
Exactly that. He apparently even used a current analogy, mentioning how a tool like Perplexity is trying to challenge Google and search. It shows that even the biggest tech giants aren't immune to disruption.
That makes sense. Even if you're number one, you can't stand still, especially in a field moving as fast as blockchain.
For sure. Constant innovation, constant adaptation seems to be the name of the game. Resting on your laurels is dangerous.
Okay, so let's just quickly pull the threads together on Hoskinson's prediction. He sees foundational design issues.
Right, the accounting model, VM, consensus.
Leading to major governance headaches that could take years to solve.
Yeah, a long and difficult path to effective on-chain governance.
Plus, a concern that layer 2s, while helping with scaling, might actually siphon off value from the main Ethereum chain.
That economic drain potential.
And all this is happening while hungry competitors, maybe more agile or better designed, are actively chipping away at Ethereum's market share.
Exactly. That's the core of the prediction, as reported. Flawed foundations, governance difficulties, value extraction, and fierce competition.
It's crucial to remember, though, this is a prediction. It's one expert's analysis, albeit a very well-informed one.
Absolutely. Is his interpretation of the trajectory based on the challenges he identifies, not a guaranteed future.
Which leads us perfectly to our final thought, really, for you listening. You've heard this perspective from someone who was there at the start, someone who's built a major alternative. Given these potential hurdles for Ethereum and just the incredible speed everything moves at in this space, what do you think? What factors, what future developments will really decide which platforms sink, swim, or truly dominate in the long run? What's going to determine relevance and success years down the line?